Welcome back to another Mayfield Matrix on the Orange and Brown Talk podcast. Option 4 we are discussing today. Dan Labbe, Ashley Bastock, Mary Kay Cabot, Scott Patsko, and me, Doug Lesmerises. The option today, probably the least likely of the 5 that we're talking about. So far, we've done, what if the Browns just do kind of what they're saying, which is just all in on Baker Mayfield, no other real option in 2022. Or option 2 was, what if you bring in a veteran? Option 3 was, what if you draft a rookie? Option 5 is, what if you trade him and you bring in a more established veteran? But option 4 is sort of like, you know what? Let's just sign him. Let's just sign him to the extension. Part of the reason we're doing this is because if you let a quarterback play on that rookie option in year 5, it is like the definition of uncertainty. You're not committing. You're saying just play now. And we know that you can franchise him and tag him for a couple more years. But when you really believe in a guy, you give him a deal. The comparison here is Blake Bortles in February after his 4th year got like a kind of small extension from the Jacksonville Jaguars a couple years ago, $54 million for 3 years, not the mega deal that a lot of these guys who have signed have gotten. The Jags were coming off an AFC Championship game. Bortles had just played his best year, so they gave him this 3-year, $54 million deal. That's kind of the comparison here. Let's not have the discussion of how likely it is. We'll get to that shortly. This might be a shorter podcast. What would be the pros of this? Because there was a time all last offseason, for instance, where the idea of a Baker Mayfield extension was front and center. It didn't seem crazy. It didn't seem like a stretch. It seemed like the natural course of things. And now it's feeling less so. It doesn't seem like it's going to happen. But would there be any benefit to it? Pros to the idea of a Baker Mayfield extension in the next couple months?
Yeah, I think you get clarity that we've talked about before on in this series. Whether you like that clarity or not, you would know that you've made a commitment to this person and you're moving forward with him, and that's that. And you're going to do whatever you can to get the most out of him. I think that's probably the best pro I can come up with. This is just the clarity of knowing that you've made this decision and now you're moving on to other things.
I think another pro would be that your quarterback, you would be showing faith in your quarterback, and maybe he would rise to the occasion if he felt like you believed in him and he was your long-term guy, or at least your medium-term guy, and that he felt he was going to be here for 3 more years, and that just this notion of, you're not giving me any kind of an offer and you obviously don't want me, so why are we even doing this again next year when we're going to be getting a divorce at the end of 2022? So that would be a pro, that he would be like, okay, they like me.
And I do think you'd be getting him as cheap as you're going to get him, right? Because if you work this out, Baker Mayfield, not a ton of leverage right now. If he agreed to it, and they said, at the bargaining table, it's like, well, listen, dude, right? So I do think if you think there's still a pretty big upside out there for Baker Mayfield, you know what? You might get him at a decent price if you did this right now. Sign him at his low ebb. Okay. The cons. Dan, what are the cons to this? And the cons are, we're not trying to be mean here, but it's probably not going to happen. Why not?
The cons are just the financials, not that you'd be giving him a ton of money, but it complicates things financially if he doesn't work out. If you just give him this extension and it doesn't work out. And, sort of like, I think the lesson from the Blake Bortles thing is they went to the AFC Championship game and they were kind of like, oh, let's pay this guy because we went to the AFC Championship game. But I don't know that you were paying for future performance, which is kind of how you should be doing these extensions. You're not paying for past accomplishments completely. You want to pay for future performance, especially for a guy who's so early in his career. So yeah, that to me is the con, is like you're kind of locking yourself in financially and you're just making things a little more complicated on that front, even though it wouldn't be like huge money.
Let me say this about the con. We have had various discussions on this podcast about whether the salary cap is real or not, or whether it's imaginary and it always is going to go up and you can always figure stuff out. So the Eagles signed Carson Wentz before year 4. It blows up. They wind up trading him to the Colts. They end up, I think their dead cap hit for the year that just happened was like $30 million or something. But now they're off it. And they made the playoffs in the year of the gigantic dead cap that they had to eat of Carson Wentz. The Jaguars, they signed Blake Bortles. Spoiler alert, didn't work out. Got benched for Cody Kessler. Oh, option 7 is bring back Cody Kessler. I
Yes.
forgot that we added that one at the end. It is bring back the jersey. Brian Hoyer and Cody Kessler fighting it out behind Baker Mayfield was option 7.
Colt McCoy.
Colt McCoy. The Jags, they ate $15.5 million of dead cap the next year, but they gave up on Blake Bortles, and then they signed Nick Foles to like a 4-year, $88 million deal. The dead cap they had to eat on Blake Bortles did not stop them from handing out another gigantic quarterback contract, which also didn't work, but it didn't limit them. I do think that the fear of the dead money of like, what if we give this guy a contract and it doesn't work and we have to eat it? I've come around on like, that is actually not as crushing maybe as I think some people think it is, because you just like end up having to do some fancy maneuvering for like a year and then you're good. And then you move on. Like, am I crazy to think that con specifically, what if it doesn't work and you have to eat it, is actually not that big of a con?
Well, it depends on how much you're talking about. I mean, if you're eating, $30 million of dead cap, I think that's a huge con in a year when you're paying a lot of other guys a lot of money now on the Cleveland Browns. You're heading into a situation where, Miles is hitting his huge cap money and Denzel's probably going to get paid. And you've got double-digit millions going to Wyatt Teller and Joel Bitonio. So you've got some big paydays going on. So I do think that having to eat a significant amount of dead cap is a big con, especially because you might want to try to sign some, big name receiver and things like that. So I do think in their case right now that would not be good. But I think there are other cons in this situation. And that is, as I mentioned, they're heading into big payouts for a lot of guys. So I think you have to be careful how you spend your money. The other thing is, if you do want to try to trade him, you don't want a 3-year contract hanging over your head.